Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. Today I have a special video. I'm going to call it Mr. Turner's Legend video because you know what? It's very special when you watch somebody, when you're in your teens and see a guy play at a high level, especially at one of the most renowned colleges in all of college football, the University of Oklahoma. And I can say I'm more blessed and honored and thankful to have this young man on. He was Reggie Bush before it was Reggie Bush. He was Tariq Hill before it was Tariq Hill. And he was one of the most special guys that done it at a high level. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it because I'm bringing a gentleman that went to a school back in let me get my notes right, 1950, had a 31-game winning streak. Then a few years later, in 1953, they had a 47-game winning streak under one of the greatest coaches that done it under Bud Wilkinson. Name of the school is the Oklahoma Sooners. So let me bring up a gentleman that did that thing at a high level in the early 70s. He's out of Port Arthur, Texas, where some in the water, the legend himself, Mr. Joe Washington. How you doing this morning, sir?
Man, I'm doing even better when you said young. That kind of, sparked a little something there. I thank you. Yeah, you can have me on anytime, man. You talking like that.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to get right to it because what I like to do, I'm a big history guy, Mr. Washington, and I like to talk about history. I like to get into your life and just what brought you up to this point. Great career, great ambassador, and doing a lot of great things in the community over there in Norman, Oklahoma. So I'm going to start with your earlier years. At some in the water down there in Port Arthur, Texas, you went to Abraham Lincoln High School. And when I was doing my research, you went to the same high school as Jamal Charles, who had a great career at Texas. My man, Steven Jackson, who played in the NBA at a high level. Jonathan Babineau, who played here locally. We broadcast here in the Metro Atlanta area, played with the Atlanta Falcons, had a good career. Bobby Leapo, who played with the San Francisco 49ers that got a Super Bowl ring. Most of our Mike Green that went to Oklahoma State that played with San Diego. Darrell Harris that played with the Dolphins. And Tim Akaya. So my first question to you, what are y'all doing down there in Port Arthur to bring all that great talent that's came through college in the NFL? What's down in the water in Port Arthur, sir?
Well, what one thing I would sort of lend a lot of things to is, we had a, pretty good, community of people that played together, got together, worshiped together. And I think, having that particular, relationship, and being in a neighborhood, where all of you were, just for instance, Bobby Leopold, his dad was one of the assistants on my dad's staff. Darrell Harris, he was a neighbor of mine, lived right down the street. We played together every day. Micaiah, he also went to my dad's high school, Lincoln. And like I said, we all played together. Even before, my dad, came on the scene. We had a guy named Aaron Brown that came out of Port Arthur to play for the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's been, it's been a community where, for the most part, it brought that community together by having these sporting, events. And I've always believed that, having, an outlet like that, where the community is involved every Friday night, man, like Friday night football. That's where it all came about there. And, up in the Odessa area, Odessa Permian area of Texas, that's where Friday night football came about. And I think, because of that, that event of getting together, everybody getting out, and a thief could have a good time on Friday nights down in Port Arthur because you know where everybody is, man.
That's right. Now, your father was the head coach, correct?
Yeah. Now, they have since, of course, closed, Lincoln. And they've closed Thomas Jefferson and Stephen F. Austin. They've combined, your whole school system, which, most cities are doing. And, all those guys, we're from the same area. But I know my dad coached, let's see, at least, well, let's put it like this. In Port Arthur, we have more guys that have played in the Super Bowl than
Yes, sir.
any other, school, a city in the country. And that says a lot for a community, the size of our community. And I do think there's something in the water down there. It has to be.
Okay, now you're coming out of high school. I want to know this. This gets me excited. Now, you went to OU, but what other schools were recruiting you, and what made OU the special place that you attended?
Well, first of all, I was interested in schools where some of my the people I looked up to. You know, if there was certain running backs, wherever they went to school, that were my favorite running backs. I definitely looked at those places. Of course, for the most part, I was lucky enough to be recruited and receive letters from every school in the country. But I was looking at the Naval Academy because they had a running back by the name of Joe Bellino. Of course,
Yes, sir.
Syracuse with the with Jim Brown
Ernie
and
Davis,
yeah,
Floyd
Ernie
Little.
Davis. Yeah. Then you had Billy Cannon with LSU. Then you had Gail Sayers with Kansas. You had Mike Garrett, O.J. Simpson with USC. You had Mel Farr, went to Michigan State. Um, and that was sort of well, of course, Texas because of Chris Gilbert and
Right.
Chris Gilbert and Jim Bertelson. Of course, they were their last all, white, you know, uh,
Yes,
team,
sir.
to win a national championship. So being in Texas, that was definitely a place you were considering. So I was lucky enough to have, wherever I wanted to go, by all means. And even, Ivy League schools, were of interest because as a kid growing up, um, the Ivy Leagues were definitely, powerhouses, back in the 40s and the 30s or
Mm.
whatever. And I had all these little books that I would read about, one was called Football Fever. And it talked about the rivalries and the all men bring their kids in on planes and, them playing for championships. So, that was even of interest. But watching Greg Pruitt and Johnny Rodgers in the game of the century um, really piqued my interest because now you're looking at a couple of running backs too and receivers that are close in stature to what I am, the same height, So what I actually did, when I watched that game, I was watching to see how I would fit in, at those
Yes, sir.
particular places. And watching Nebraska run the eye and sitting, Johnny Rodgers out on the wing. I knew I didn't want to be in the wing. I wanted to be where the action was all the time. And then, of course, watching the opportunities that Greg presented and the possibility of being able to play in the same backfield with Greg Pruitt, because my year was the first year freshmen were eligible to play. So I was looking at that particular, that figured in. Plus, I wanted to be a dentist, I thought,
Mm.
and seeing which school had a dental school. So all those things, sort of took place. But I narrowed it down eventually to the University of Houston, who had a guy by the name of Warren McVay that
Oh,
played,
you were
in,
sweet,
yeah, who
sweet.
also played in the NFL for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes, sir.
Um, he showed
Great.
me around when I visited, University of Houston. So it was I narrowed it down to University of Houston, Texas, and Oklahoma. I wanted I wanted to be fairly close to home. but of course, far enough away to where it would be some type of adventure, where I'm off, going to school. But those are the three schools that it boiled down to. Well, I must add also, the University of Houston had a black coach by the name of Elmer Red.
Oh,
Now he
yes, I
also
heard.
coached. Yeah, he coached high school football in Lufkin, Texas, at Dunbar,
Woo!
where my mom's dad was the principal for so many years, and I had a good relationship with him. The new coach, Wendell Mosley at the University of Oklahoma, had coached Greg Pruitt in high school, and his teams also played against my dad's teams. So
Mm.
I had a good relationship with him. Texas was just the fact that, hey, every kid grows up wants to go to Texas and give this hook 'em horn sign, which incidentally don't really mean hook 'em horns. You know what I mean? That means
Yes,
I kick their butts 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a row. You know what I mean? So, so,
breaks,
so,
royalty.
so those were the three schools it boiled down to, and of course, I eventually decided upon Oklahoma.
Okay, let's talk about your Oklahoma career. Sophomore year, junior year, senior year, you only lost one game, you tied one game. But I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna take you back. Night game, your sophomore year. By the way, you had 1,173 yards that year, and I believe you had 10 touchdowns. But this one, I know you came on the map. I was in the 8th grade. My dad loved college football. Today he's watching down in Memphis, Tennessee, the 901 Chester Turner. And I'm gonna tell you something else special. My cousins are from Oklahoma. Shouts out to Bryce. Shout out to my uncle Opie, big time Oklahoma fans. But I'm gonna tell you, take you back. I was a big USC fan back in the day. Watching the night game, the two most prominent programs in the country, USC and Oklahoma. Have never heard about you, Mr. Washington, because I was a big time USC fan, and that team was special that year. That team had Anthony Davis, Booker Brown, Richard Batman Wood, Marvin Carr, Charles Phillips, Gary Jeter, and the great Lynn Swan. Here comes Oklahoma out there, and all I knew about Oklahoma was about them three big studs, the Salmon brothers, Lucius, Dewey, and Leroy. And then all of a sudden the game starts. There's a punt. And all of a sudden they said, this is a sophomore from Port Arthur, Texas, by the name of Mr. Joe Washington. You receive the punt and you go, man, you run about 40 yards backwards. But you had all those USC guys falling over themselves, man. You was making moves, like I said, Reggie Bush before Reggie Bush, Tariq Hill before Tariq Hill. And he ended up, I think you had a 3-yard loss on the play. But you know what I saw? When I saw that play, you know what I looked at? As we say down in the 901. And we should say this in the neighborhood. That's a spider. That's greatness. A spider. We call people with feet spider. Greatness. And I said, man, that guy gonna be real. Take us back to that moment. Your 3 years there, and you played with so many great players. Dewey, the Salmon brothers, Rod Schultz, who's one of the best linebackers that done it. Randy Hughes, Zach Henderson, Steve Davis ran that bomb, using the backfield with Jim Luttrell, Ellis Peacock. Talk about them 3 years right there, because the first 2 years, y'all was on probation, but you won 2 national championships. Just talk about that time there, that game, and what was so special about that bomb. And then let me throw another nugget in there and talk about your Colorado game. I believe senior you had, over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, the fact, I considered, UCLA because of, like I say, O.J. Simpson, Mike Garrett. And, it was just a place, for running backs. And being able to play against them, which was one of the premier programs, of course, and the fact that, they had, Anthony Davis, who, matter of fact, he and I have been, friends for a long time. And just on a quick note, he and I made a few All-American teams together along with Archie Griffin, those particular years there. So we got a chance to travel and spend a lot of time together. And I would say, both of those guys are quality, groovy, guys. And one thing, you always want to do, when you're playing against a team, is heralded as your, institution is, and and whose players you've always worship and my goodness, watched on television, like everybody else, and us being Oklahoma, and now with Greg Pruitt being gone, it's now I'm now seasoned, sophomore, and now it's my show, my offense, and I return punch, some my freshman year, and this is what I do. And on that particular play, I didn't really remember, where the wall was. For whatever reason, you're excited. The game's going on. It's right before half. You're battling back and forth. Everything you get, you earn. You've so far made some pretty good plays. We should have been leading by this time, but we missed a couple of field goals and fumbled the ball like we always do. We fumble the ball and dribble it like they do in basketball, with their wishbone, bouncing it and all kind of different things. So they punted it to me. I didn't remember which way the wall was, so I figured I'd buy a little time. I didn't have, much time anyway because, it was right before the half. So, you figure you could make something happen. And before I knew it, I was back around the 15-yard line. And I thought, this isn't going to sit well with Coach Switzer, my backfield coach, or my dad who's on the sideline.
Yes,
so
sir.
I figured I better, start back the other way. But sure enough, I always had confidence in the fact that, my wall will always come, even though I didn't know which side it was, they eventually came. And after I'd retreated, back to around the 15-yard line and headed the other way, let me tell you what, they started picking, guys off like snipers, Vince, I tell you. And if Lucius hadn't been spectating, we always tease him about that, and blocked one guy who had been blocked twice. One guy got up, I think it was Ricky Bell. Remember him, the star, but he was playing backup behind Anthony Davis at the time. But I think, he got up, number 40, whoever he was, number 42, he got up and made the tackle and saved us, from actually winning that football game, because if not for him, making that particular effort, we were going to score on that particular play.
Okay, let's talk about your last game of your college career. Really your only bowl game. You playing in the Orange Bowl against a Michigan team. They had Rick Leach, Gordon Bell, Jim Smith, who won the Super Bowl ring with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Your final game of the year. But what stuck out to me, y'all won that football game at 14-6. But the way that you paved the way after you left, and that freshman class that you had that carried the medal, Billy Sims in that freshman class, Kenny King, Daryl Hunt, Victor Hicks, Reggie Kinlaw. Talk about the final game and you passing down the torch to Mr. Sims, who's from Hooks, Texas, to Mr. Hunt, that's from Odessa, and Mr. Kenny King, I believe he was outside Houston. All those Texas guys looking up to you, but you set the tone and y'all won that football game 14-6, another national championship. Talk about your last game and that legacy you left to all those other great players.
Well, I'd have to really agree with you. That's probably one of the finest freshman classes I have ever seen. And for it, and for us to get him at the University of Oklahoma, Coach Switzer was a great, recruiter, plus, with the run we had over that 4-year period I was there, my freshman year, we lose one game to Colorado my freshman year. Um, my next year, of course, we in a tie with USC. Then the next year, we go undefeated, and having those particular guys, and they all played as freshmen. They all played, and knowing that you were leaving things in very good hands, very
Yes.
good hands. We had Thomas Lott also. Uh, I mean, it was just a matter of, like they say, we are basically just reloading. That's it. And I know I was a little disappointed because they probably should have won another, championship, at least those, that particular group's, year, which goes to show you, it's not all about, the talent. You have to have a little luck. And we had a lot of luck, because that particular night against Michigan, I tell you, if 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 they don't beat Ohio State, then we don't win a national championship. And John Shower, the quarterback, for UCLA, and we talk all the time. And he, of course, every time I talk to him, he wants to make sure I thank him for, that victory, which I do graciously, and and go on. But um, it was a really eerie evening. We weren't scoring as much as we should have. We were going up and down the field. And I will say this: if we'd played for 2 weeks, they wouldn't have. They would have never have beaten us. And we were just getting stronger and stronger as the second half went by. And the way they scored is we fumbled the ball on the 1 yard line, our own 1 yard line, and that's how they got their touchdown. But it was a realization that this was it. There will be no more. You look around and you see all the guys that you came in here with. Uh, See all the guys that you're going out with. You realize too that Switzer, of course, had really nothing to do with your attending the University of Oklahoma because he wasn't the head coach at the time. So, Coach Fairbanks and Greg Pruitt, guys of that, of that era were, the convincing factors that, made you decide that this is where you want to be. And you realize that you made the right choice. I was able to get my degree in 4 years. And it was a place that great fraternity, a lot of friendships, especially looking back at it now. I just, attended, a funeral for one of my buddies and teammates, who played the right half with Elvis Peacock my junior year in Grant Burriott. And you realize then that, this is a path that you will never, ever walk through again.
Yes, sir.
And it was a period that, unbelievable camaraderie. It was a period that, definitely changed because you had that freshman group coming in and they were young guys. It was a change of rights and, acknowledging, the black player even more so at that particular point. And the fact, having black quarterbacks, which is what, we started one as a freshman at the University of Oklahoma, and Kerry Jackson from Galveston Ball. And, a lot of things went through your mind. It was his graduating year and my graduating class, which was probably, second to only the next class coming up. All of us guys were leaving. Hey, we only lost 2 games our whole 4 years there. And you won 2 national championships, never lost to Texas, never lost to Nebraska. And it was something that, we were, really proud of being able to accomplish. And to this day, that's one thing that brings guys together and camaraderie, the fact that, being on teams that were close and winning football games.
Okay, you move on to the next level, which is the NFL. You drafted by San Diego, fourth pick in the 1976 draft. And all respect to you, Brother Washington, you being a great player at Oklahoma. What happened in San Diego? Because you had Dan Phelps, you had Charlie Joyner, you had Doug Wilkerson, had Mike Williams out of LSU. I believe Fred Dean was on that team,
Yep.
and Mike Williams. What happened in that year? Because things seemingly didn't work out in San Diego.
Well, let me tell you something. San Diego was one of my childhood teams. I mean, it was a team that, number one, I love their uniforms with their lightning bolt on the side. They had a guy by the name of Paul Lowe, number 23, the running back. They had Dick Post, Mike Garrett even played there for a few years. They had a guy named Dickie Post who was from Ardmore, Texas, was small and had a nice, great running style. I actually, talked to him, on different occasions because he was from, the state of Oklahoma.
And then I would Alworth too. Lance Alworth.
Bambi, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. John Hadle, Ernie Ladd, who was from the Golden Triangle, he played he played in Orange. So, like I say, it was, plus they played on grass. It was a perfect place for me to go. Well, being their fourth player, I played in the very last college All-Star game where they had the college All-Stars play against the Super Bowl champions. I played in the very last game of that, and I was excited about it because, they were looking for me to rescue this team and, be the savior. And just like, most, incidents, that are destined to take place, we're playing in a preseason game in Norman, Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, where I'd never missed a game, never got injured. We were playing against New England Patriots with Chuck Fairbanks, who was the coach who recruited me. He had about 4 or 5 players that played at Oklahoma on his team. And with us in San Diego, we had me and Tony DiRienzo, who was a kicker. So sure enough, in the second half, I'm returning a kick, and I tear up my knee.
Oh.
And that kind of started, that unbelievable year that I faced to really, tested, me as to, see what, I was made of by having a knee injury, which I'd never, suffered any type of, injury of that sort, playing in high school or the University of Oklahoma. So I ended up having surgery on that particular knee. Tried to come back, during the season. It didn't pan out. I ended up having another surgery, and I was lost for the rest of the year. And I think, that particular time now, I was sort of forgotten about because of the injury. They were expecting a lot of things out of me. I was expecting a lot of things out of me, and that didn't happen. So I came back the next year and wasn't playing as much as I thought I should. I think, that year of being absent and away, when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And I think that played a little role. So my wife, convinced me that, things weren't going to, change no matter what I did. And she said, I definitely said I should, ask for a trade. So I got traded to my favorite team of all time as a kid with Lenny Moore, who I wore number 24 for.
Penn State finest in the house.
That's it. So here I am, and now I get traded to the Baltimore Colts. Growing up as a kid, my little brother was 19, number 24. Number 19, and I was number 24, Lenny Moore. So I say, my goodness, I'm just like that rabbit that had, that the wolf caught, that you didn't want him to throw you into the briar patch. You know what I mean? So they threw me into my briar patch. And like you say, I got definitely rejuvenated. End up having one of, probably one of my greatest opportunities in games against the New England Patriots again on Monday night. And as they say then, the rest is history. This one of those days where everything just, jails for you. I get a chance to do everything that I was taught to do as a kid growing up as a football player by my dad, being a complete player, being able to, block, run with the football, throw the football, and catch the football and return, punts and kickoffs. So I had the opportunity to do all of that night. And I did on national TV with Howard Cosell.
I'm going to talk about that moment. Like you said, you got traded to the Colts and you went to the Baltimore Colts. You had the Louisiana boys, had Roger Carr, had Burt Jones, then had an adversary in Roosevelt Leaks. But I'm going to talk about that night you just mentioned. Now, I was an 18-year-old freshman at the University of Arkansas in Buchanan Drake with all my buddies. We had a little six-pack. We had a little pizza. And all of a sudden, it kind of started raining. And I remember Danny Don Meredith said, hey, here come the guy from Boomer Sooner, Oklahoma, finna get in the game. But the first thing I remember was that halfback pass you threw for Roger Carr. On the money, we call it ice. That bullet, that Joe Street Gilliam out of Tennessee State. You put it there to Mr. Roger Carr. Then you had that reception from Bill Troop, who's a backup quarterback in the game. But the moment was, man, it was raining. And you took that 90-yarder all the way back, I believe in the fourth quarter, that kickoff return. And the whole place in Buchanan Drake erupted. Matter of fact, somebody spilled some beer on me that night. And boy, you took it to another level. And I said, oh my Lord, I'm seeing Gail Sayers. I'm seeing Willie Gallimore. I'm seeing Bob Hayes all in one. Talk about that play, sir. Just reminiscence on that kickoff return. How you turned on them Jets from Port Arthur.
Well, you know what? When you say Willie Gallimore, hey, Gail Sayers, Chicago Bears, hey, like I say, those are as a kid, I'm just shocked that somebody, your age, hey, has that, that type of mind and memory, looking at history, of all those guys, man, that's impressive. And I always wanted to make those guys proud if, especially if, with Gail going to Kansas, and he was at Kansas, back in an administrative role when I was at Oklahoma playing. So when we play, of course, I definitely try to, get off, then. But most of the time, I didn't get to play much of the game because, by the second quarter, that game was over, with the good football team we had. But that night in New England, I was really, only going to play specialty teams and maybe get in on, passing situations. The one thing I always wanted to do, though, they always talked about me being a special down player. I wanted to show that at 175 pounds, 178 pounds, that I could play full time. And that particular night, the starting running back, Don McCauley from North Carolina, who's in the College Hall of Fame, he got in, he hurt his shoulder. And it was my time. And I knew one of two things. I was either going to sink or swim, because the only plays I knew were the ones I carried the ball and was in the passing route. So I knew it was going to either be a good night or a bad night, because it was going to be up to me, because, like I say, I'd just gotten there. And, the only plays I knew, basically, I learned first were the ones in which I carried the ball and had a prominent, role in it. And I like, the fact that, Coach Marshall Broder had, that type of confidence in me, and he understood, the skills I had, being a coach's son, being able to throw the football. And of course, I was running to my left, throwing the football. And it was wet, didn't matter to me. Hey, I've thrown a bunch of footballs in high school with my dad, going the wrong way, going the right way, in inclement weather. So no big deal to me. It was just the fact that my getting these opportunities to do this, I was just shocked. I said, man, I'm carrying the ball a bunch. And I'm returning punts, I'm returning kickoffs, I'm catching the ball. I mean, this is everything that I dreamed of. Being in this situation, where you are handling the ball. And all the scoring took place in the fourth quarter. And after, New England scored again to come within, I think, 3 points or whatever, they kicked off to us and they squibbed it. And I'm thinking, why would you squib it? Which amazes me. When they squib the ball, that gives guys like myself and any other, kick returner, the opportunity to, number one, get the ball quicker and, farther up the field. So why coaches do that, I have no idea. The odds are just, against them as far as I'm concerned. Because if you do that in teams that have practiced and that are willing, to work on, that particular part, they're going to burn you. So when he kicked it to me, I said, I can't believe he kicked the ball to me. He recruited me. And now he's going to kick the ball to me. Oh, one other thing too, Vincent. I did not slip one time in all that run. Not one time.
Amen.
And when he kicked the ball to me on the run going forward, I, hit it right. Saw a seam to the left, cut and dashed through that, and made a quick dash to the outside. And my goodness, it was just off to the races then. And Don Hardeman, one of the fullbacks from Texas A&I, he escorted me in, and hey, that was the end of the football game for the most part. But we had to kick off to them, and they still had some time, left in the game. And that game, for the most part, whatever confidence I'd lost, in San Diego by being injured, whether my knee was okay or not, that convinced me, that it was. And whether I was, big enough to play every down, I realized that I was. And, whether I had the skills or not to be able to play, I realized then that, hey, the NFL, with all the things, they have running backs do, that game was made for me.
Okay, let's talk about you leaving Baltimore. Now we kind of getting not, I say, more advanced in your career. You get traded to Washington, and then you end up in Atlanta. But I'm going to start with the Washington situation. You win a Super Bowl ring. But what was it like going over to Washington and playing with them dogs, as we say down in the 901? The dogs, Art Monk, Alvin Garrett, the young man from Kansas, John Riggins. Oh, my Lord. The young man who I thought was one of the greatest athletes I saw him play in college out of Houston by the name of Dexter Manley. Another great athlete, Derek Grant, who came to y'all as offensive guard, moved over to the nose tackle, had the interception against my beloved Cowboys in that 1982 NFC Championship game. The young man out of San Diego State, Vernon Dean. And then my man that played at Oklahoma, Terry Peters. And then the fun bunch, Alvin Garrett, Art Monk, Charlie Brown. What was it like playing on that team with all them dogs, as you say in the 901? And then talking about you ending your career in Atlanta with another dog out of the 305 from Delray Beach, Florida, two-time All-American Florida State finest, Mr. Bobby Butler.
Bobby Butler. Yes, sir. Well, going from the Colts, um, and before I left, they had they changed coaches. Coach Marshall Brodum, who I really had a great deal of respect for, enjoyed playing for him. One of my favorites of all time, and he was gone at that particular point. So getting traded to Washington, it was basically another lease on my football life. Playing for it's always something. Okay, playing for the Colts, one of my favorite team as a kid growing up. My team, the Colts. Then you go to Washington, and here you are. Your name's Washington. Now you're playing for Washington. And so I'm coming up with all these connections and reasons to be here, and reasons for me to for it to be the right place for me to be. And we start off, and I have some great preseason games, and I make sure that I let them know and understand, that I can still play, because this is I think this is my fifth year in the league. Yeah, I'm three with Baltimore. Yeah, this is my sixth year. 3 years with Baltimore, two in San Diego, and now my first year in Washington. So, hey, I'm at the crossroads. So I make that impression, and I've always been a hard worker in practice, and that's one thing my dad as a coach instilled in all of us is don't let anybody outwork you, and there's nothing wrong with hard work. It cures a lot of different things. So that's one thing that has always been a part of me, that ability to do that, and I've always seen that in my dad growing up as a kid, been in an all black school, just having to do things, a little bit more than someone else. So that was instilled. So being able to go there with that stellar, group of guys. Matter of fact, a lot of those guys came in that year with me, Mark May and Grant and all those guys. So I was just looking for an opportunity. Now, up until this particular point, I have yet to be on a winning team since leaving this great state of Oklahoma. I went from winning two national championships, four, conference championships, losing only two games out of a whole 4-year career. And I have been in the league for 5 years, and I have yet to be on a winning team in a winning season. Yet. That's it. I mean, we're talking, 4-10, 6-10, 4-12, things of that particular sort. So, it's a little tough. It's really a little tough, of course, by being in Baltimore, and having, losing seasons, and, getting beat up, every game. And, we just didn't give ourselves much of a chance by losing a quarterback. You didn't have him. And Burt Jones, the years I were there, and, a lot of offensive linemen and different things. So it was really tough there. Getting to this particular place and having a new life, I start off, we start off 0-5. And I'm thinking, holy crap, man. No, holy crap, Batman. My goodness, what is going on? And I have a high ankle sprain. I think I get the second play of the season against the Giants. So now I'm out again. I can't believe this. For about, I was out 4 games. And I come back, and seeming if that when I came back, the team hit another stride, and we end up 8-8. And even after missing all of those games, I still lead the team in receiving and rushing yards. So hey, I'm back, and we instead of having a losing season, we finished 8-8. And then the next year, was a strike year. And one thing about running backs, especially around your 6th year, things start happening, and owners and coaches start looking at you, cross-eyed anyway because you're getting a little older or whatever. So uh, at that particular time, um, for whatever reason, I make a simple cut in a preseason game, and I tear my ACL. So I'm supposed to be out for the season because they don't fix ACLs back in that day. And the team carry on. But lo and behold, for whatever reason, I work out and I'm back. I'm like a bad penny. You can't get rid of me, Vince. So I'm back and, back playing. Um I know I'm not, my full 100% Joe Washington, but anything I can do, to help this football team and be a part of it, we do. And we make that stretch. And I actually, contribute. And, we get to the Super Bowl, and, John makes the big run against Miami in that particular game. And you get that, you finally get to that, holy, grail that you always, that is the epitome of what this game is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, winning the Super Bowl. So not only do we win, the Super Bowl, we get back to to another Super Bowl the next year, which is difficult to do. We end up losing to the Raiders, who they beat us like we stole something. But it's an honor and a privilege to be able to get back and be a part, of a organization with Joe Gibbs. They're one of the best staffs, around. And Joe Gibbs has to be probably, one of the best, technicians as far as making adjustments at halftime, being organized, and a player's coach. I enjoyed being in Washington, and of course, when I got traded, to Atlanta, I think they knew at that time I wasn't, the old Joe Washington. And instead of trading me, if they told me they were going to trade me, I probably would have retired and, worked out, and probably going into coaching at that particular point. But, then again, once you're traded, you have an obligation, and, you have to go down there and, and at least prove yourself that, hey, and let them guys see, what they got. And I had a great time with those guys down there. I would say that at that time, they weren't the organization that they were now, and they'd had a lot of changes. And, you could tell the difference between, the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington, Redskin organization. But they had some great guys down there. Billy White Shoes Johnson, oh, man, and Bobby Butler, I mean, had a, good offensive line, and a great quarterback, from Cal Berkeley. Golly.
Steve Broadkowski.
Yes, great guy. Great guy. I mean, if I think, in another situation, in another place, they could have been, that great, football team, because they had a lot of talent. I mean, they had a lot of talent, offensively and defensively. Gerald Riggs. I mean, hey, great defense. They had very, very good material down there. I mean, good people. So I really enjoyed, being there. Great city, and it was a way to kind of, get out of, football. At that particular point, I played 10 years and saw a lot of things, did a lot of things, was exposed to a lot of things, and met a lot of people. And a lot of people became good friends, through all those different stages. And, brings me to this particular point where I am now, where, we all still keep in contact.
Well, we kind of been talking for a while, sir. You told me some great stories. What I like to do, hopefully, we shoot on wins, is like to bring you back because I want you to talk about the running backs in this 2021 NFL draft. The two top backs, Najee Harris, Roll Tide out of University of Alabama, and Travis Etienne out of Clemson. If it was scheduled for on Wednesday. But I tell you, man, it's been a journey that I never, ever thought that I'd be getting people of your royalty on, your class. And, man, I was one of your heroes watching you play at Boomer Sooner, University of Oklahoma, running that wishbone. And just seeing you playing with the Washington Redskins and winning that Super Bowl ring, as you just mentioned, Mr. Riggins, with that great touchdown run. But when I look at you, and you being one of my heroes early on when I was a junior in high school, I was following you. I put you in the royalty as far as running backs. Now, I know a lot of people out there, they want to talk about all the great running backs, but I had a little different grade I give because my mother and father from Mississippi. So it's a different thing how we grade. And when I put you in the category, I'm going to put you on 100 yards football category, all the top great running backs. I'm going to start with the young man out of Columbia, Mississippi, by the way of Jackson State, Walter Payton. Then I'm going to start with the young man out of Sealy, Texas, Mr. Eric Dickerson. Then I'm going to start with the young man out of St. August, Florida, St. Augustine, Mr. Willie Gallimore. Matter of fact, that was my dad, one of my daddy's favorite players with the Bears. Then I'm going to put you on another great list. I'm not even going to include the quarterback. I'm going to include the quarterbacks, great players. Steve McNair out of Alcorn. Joe Street Gilliam, who never got his due, out of Tennessee State.
Yep.
The great man is something in the water down there in Mississippi, out of Crawford, the greatest, I think, pound for pound player ever played the game, and Mr. Jerry Rice. Then I'm going to talk about another young man that you made my list, the offensive tackle, one of the best they ever done it. Out of that little town out of Jackson, Mississippi, by the name of Jackie Slater.
Yeah.
And then finally, the young man out of Gulfport who really set the tone with the Detroit Lions, Mr. Lynn Barney. You made that list today, sir, Mr. Washington. And I'm going to say this before I end the day with you. It's a lot of people I want to give kudos. One to Mr. Mark Bass, because I know he's going to watch this video and he's going to be happy. I call him the greatest voice in all of radio and television. He's out of Lufkin, Texas. And I know he's going to be happy. My relatives, Bryce, who's watching in OKC today, Oklahoma City, Boomer Sooner. To my uncle down in Memphis, Tennessee, the 901, Mr. Opie Turner. Then my man who's watching right now over there in Gwinnett County, Norcross High School, Florida State finest. His son played in the league, Mr. Bobby Butler.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I missed you, if I didn't give everybody all kudos. But man, Mr. Washington, you have made my day. You made my week, sir. Thank you for coming on 100 Yards Football. And I'm going to say this. It was a band back in the day. They had a lead singer named Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones. When I think about you, Mr. Washington, and I'm watching you in college, they had a lyric on the song, I make a grown man cry. That's what you did at the University of Oklahoma. Boomer Sooner. Final words, Mr. Washington.
Well, hey, Vince, it's been awesome, man. You know, all those players you've named, hey, they were guys, like I'd say, hey, I got a chance to watch, and I've appreciated, the sacrifices that they've made, the things that they've actually gone through, and being able to be in, a fraternity where you have all these friends. And I watch all these guys, and, and like I say, I like their styles. Hey, anytime you've got a big guy at 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds that can hurdle and go into some of my grab bag and grab some things, you got to appreciate him, you know what I mean? And of course, NTN, I always have trouble pronouncing his name. Hey, being the size he is and the tackles he break, both of these guys, hey, they're going to be all right. And, hey, appreciate you for what you do. And it's been a pleasure. And anything I can ever do, hey, you could have me on all the time. Call me. All you got to do is, hey, you got my number. Hey, let me know. All right.
Yes, sir. We like to say, if you like the video today, please come and share it. I had the legend out of Port Arthur, Texas. It's been a blessing and honor to have him on today, Mr. Joe Washington. Oh, let me back up, Mr. Joseph Washington. And
No,
don't
you
forget
good. You're
the
right.
name.
You got it. Hey, it's just Joe. It's just my mom, knew I'd be mentally challenged. So she only made it 3 letters. So we're just Joe.
But what I like to say, I want to end of the day. If you like the video, please come in and share. We appreciate you here at 100 Yards Football. To my staff, let me start with the producer, Mr. Jeremiah Long. I love you. Thank you. To Mr. Logan Landis, I love you. Thank you. Mr. Kevin the Bull Jones, the finest high school coach, all of America. I love you. Thank you. To Mr. Brian Spencer, a basketball guy. I love you and thank you. And to the great, he always tells me he out of the 305. And Mr. Washington, he says, that's where the Greyhounds run. Mr. Bobby Butler out of Delray Beach, Florida. And my final word to you, Mr. Joe Washington. Dun, 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 dun. Boomer, Sooner. Have a great day. 100 yards of football.